Welcome to the last and final episode of the Sync My Music podcast for 2020. I essentially started this podcast, at the end of 2019, but I really feel like this was the first full year that I had this podcast up and going. And so I want to thank all of you guys that subscribed, obviously, that have been downloading the podcast, that have been listening, and obviously all of you that have given me a review, particularly on iTunes. That really helps people discover this really cool thing that we got going on. So thank you guys for doing that. I wanted to finish this year by just sharing with you guys what I plan on doing in the new year in terms of one resolution, one new thing that I'm going to do, or I guess I should say not do anymore. And I'm doing it basically to hold myself accountable, because I know that if I share what my plans are, as we do with the Sync 60 challenge, right? That's what we do in Sync Academy, where we share what our 60-day goals are with the community. It keeps me more accountable because I now know that all of you guys know what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to improve myself. This is actually one of the first years I've ever done a New Year's resolution. I usually don't do them. I don't know. I guess in the past I didn't find them very compelling. I've made tons of changes to my life, and I usually never waited till the 1st of January for an arbitrary date to start doing that. I usually would just do it whenever I felt like it was time to do it. But right now, I feel like this is a big thing that I want to change. And since we got the New Year's here, might as well do it, okay? So my resolution, and it's definitely going to relate back to creativity, creating music for sync licensing. So don't worry, it's not a completely self-indulgent episode here, even though it is really about me. I hope some of this stuff will actually be useful for you. And by the way, I also don't want you to think that I am trying to be preachy here or to change your mind on your habits or your goals or whatever you're going to do for the new year. This is just me sharing what's important to me and what I want to do about it and how I feel it's going to impact my life. And I will definitely share with you the results of this experiment, as I'm going to label it. So my resolution is going to be to, in 2021, I've already started, but for sure, 2021 and beyond, cut out all news consumption completely from my life. This is a habit that I will be breaking, that I've had. I mean, most of my life I've been following the news, but I'd say since 2008. 2008 was pretty much the year where I really heavily got into politics, started really following a lot of things, and going into different wormholes and rabbit holes and you name it, conspiracy theories, and going like all over the place with my sort of curiosity for this stuff. So 2008 to 2020, pretty much 12 years, I've been addicted to the news. And it's been something that I've tried to many times pull myself away from and do something else. And I have failed multiple times. So what's the definition of an addiction? Well, something that you can't control anymore, something that you continuously know you don't want to do. It's probably not the best thing for you, but you keep going back to it over and over again. So I know that I certainly have an addiction to the news. As maybe as silly as that sounds, it's what it is. It's fitting the definition 100%. And I want to tell you guys why cutting out the news is going to be a really important thing for me and why I think I really need to do it. But before I say that, the reason why is just this is the only resolution I have, just one. And even though it's a big habit, it's fairly small in terms of it's one thing that I'm going to put all my focus and energy towards, and I'm going to design my life to cut it out and replace it. And the reason why I want to experiment with this is because I've been reading this really great book called The Power of Habit. And basically in this book, there's so many fascinating, mind-boggling, really cool, eye-opening things. And I'm definitely going to be sharing a lot of that stuff with you guys in future podcast episodes and YouTube videos, and probably in the Sync Psych series within Sync Academy. But the one of the biggest takeaways that I'm getting from it is that individuals and companies can see massive changes in their lives when they find a cornerstone singular habit that they change. Okay, so some of the examples they were talking about is that people who are having a problem overeating and gaining weight, one of the cornerstone habits that they changed or they started implementing was that they just started food journaling. So every time they ate something, they were doing these, sort of experiments and these studies. They were just asked, when you go home, eat whatever you want to. We're not telling you to go on a diet or do anything, but just whenever you eat, write it down. Just write down what you eat, write down what you eat. And what happened by just implementing this one new habit, by associating basically, oh, I'm hungry, I want to eat something. Okay, the new behavior is write it down. And the reward is I get to enjoy my food, right? Guilt-free, because at least I wrote it down and now I've got my reward. What happened is changing this one or introducing this new little tiny habit into their daily routines started to create awareness for these people, and they started to see patterns. Like they noticed that they were hungry at certain parts of the day. They always had a craving, let's say at 10 a.m. And so what they would do is, and they weren't asked to do this in the study, but they would start to prepare healthy meals and healthy foods around the time that they got really, really hungry. So they sort of started to anticipate their hunger rather than just reacting to it when it sort of crept up, and then just go for whatever was fastest and easiest, which is usually the unhealthy stuff. And this goes for, companies, it goes for organizations. So basically changing one, sometimes even a small little habit can have ripple effects that start to change multiple parts of your life. Okay, so that's why this is the one thing that I think I need to really hone in on, pay attention to, and replace this habit. The biggest reason why cutting out the news is going to be something that I want to eliminate is it controls my focus of my life. Okay. It doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're on, and we're not going to get into the specific issues or anything like that. Left, right, center, doesn't matter where you are. When you are constantly, or when I was constantly tuning into these different news channels, outlets, YouTube, and it's independent media too. We're not just talking about the CNNs, MSNBCs, the Foxes. We're also talking about independent people, independent creators, people that are not backed by major corporations, but anybody who has a bias, which is every human being, and everybody that wants to inject their opinion or their agenda into whatever's going on in the world. By definition, when we pay attention to them or to anything, it's basically taking control of our focus, okay? So whenever there's an outrage, there's some story, there's some scandal, there's some problem going on in the political world or whatever in the news, a natural disaster, because we're paying attention to it, we feel like it's the most important thing in the world, because every news outlet's talking about it. It has to be the most important thing. So it has to be what I'm thinking about. It has to be it has to dominate the conversations that I have with my friends and family. I have to be analyzing this, thinking about it, getting all these other opinions about it. It has to be a complete focus for me. With that said, I don't want to even call the news anymore, because I don't even see it as the news anymore. I see the news industry as the misdirection industry. I feel that what it's doing is it's misdirecting people towards wherever they want you to be misdirected towards. Because as I've been reflecting on my life, in the last year and over the last many years, all the 12 years that I've been really hooked into the news industry, what have I gotten from it? What has changed as a result of me paying so much attention to these issues and problems and things that pretty much I can't control? What do I have to show for it? Well, I got a lot more stressed out than I probably would have. Probably lost some years of my life just from all the negativity and the insanity that's been going on, obviously, in the world through the news organizations. I just haven't felt that I've gotten much out of my time there. And I think about it, what would have changed in my life in terms of like major things if I had just not watched the news all those years? Not too much. Sun would have still been shining, birds still chirping, friends and family life still would have probably been the same. In fact, all that stuff probably would have been better, because I wouldn't have this sort of, negative lens that I'm looking through all the time, addicted to, and having this stuff blare into my brain 24/7, telling me how the world is screwed up, how everything's corrupt, how everything's falling apart, how the world is just getting destroyed, how there's no hope, how I should be afraid of one thing or another thing. It doesn't matter what it is. They will replace it with the next thing that you have to be afraid of. And it's just misdirection. It's just like, look over here, look all these horrible things. Meanwhile, in my own life, like in my body and in my brain, things are okay, and sure, I have struggles and challenges and those kind of issues, but it's not a 24/7, breaking news event in my life where it's like, oh my gosh, look at this horrible thing, look at that horrible thing. That's not how my life is. And I think if you guys think about yourselves, probably your life is not that crazy or intense either. But what we're doing when we look at these, outlets and these networks and these opinion makers is we're constantly feeling like there's just always something to be very anxious about. There's always something to be really, really worked up about. So anyways, with other people controlling my focus of my life, I started to just get really disgusted with that in the last couple of days, to be honest with you guys. And I don't want to live in their world. I don't want to live with their focus of what they think is important for my life, because I will be the judge and the decider of what I think is important that I want to spend time on and focus on, because I know that whatever I focus on seems to me it'll seem and appear to be the most important thing on earth. And so I'd rather make that decision than having somebody else injecting me with that focus, right? And what are they really injecting you with? Are they injecting you with hope and optimism and reasons to be feeling good about the future and about your country? No, you really don't. For the most part, you get a lot of threats and negativity and fear and watch out for this and this can get you and that's going to happen and look at this horrible disaster that happened halfway across the world and look at this horrible thing that could happen to you in the future and watch out for this. That is the misdirection that we're getting fed, spoon-fed every single day, right? We're being programmed to be negative, to look for negativity, to feel negative. One thing that I've also started to notice, some of my favorite artists and bands, and I'm not going to name them, I don't want to put them on blast, but some of the bands and artists that I've loved for many years are starting to come out with music that is so negative, and it's so about how everything's falling apart, and they feel horrible, and they feel all this kind of stuff. And in their interviews, I'm watching that they're basically all saying that they're repeating essentially the talking lines of the news industry. And it's kind of like, whoa, is it really possible that like we could be programmed by these companies and these organizations, and then that programming could basically influence how we create music and how we share and express ourselves with the world? And 100%, right? It's not even, you don't even have to even ask the question, of course. And so now that I'm seeing a lot of the people that I used to look up to, and now feel this sort of like sadness that they're completely wrapped in that fear and putting it out there and basically pumping it back out into the world as more fear in the form of their art, it's heartbreaking. It just sucks. It really sucks to see that kind of stuff. And I don't want to contribute to that. I really don't want to be a part of that. And I know with my videos and my podcast, I haven't. I know that I have been very, obviously positively, focused. And that's where my sort of focus is. But I won't be lying to you guys. Like, I for sure struggle with it. Like, there are definitely times where I feel negative about a lot of stuff. And sometimes I will just force myself to get on camera and say something positive to try to convince myself that there is a positive, optimistic spin on it. And actually it works. And so that's what I've realized, that like you can actually fake your way through this sometimes. Sometimes you can feel negative, but just start saying positive things and just make a positive statement or just write positive affirmations. And you'll actually start to believe the positive sides of it. But you do have to take that action. You have to do something about it. So that's why it's got to go. And this is the kind of stuff that I really want to change. And I want to start to see if this is going to have a ripple effect in my life. And I think it might, because I think this one thing that's providing me with so much negativity, if I could sort of cancel that out, who knows what else could come in and take its place. That's the cool thing about this. That's what I'm really open to. It does hinder creativity as well. So when you are constantly focused on how the world sucks and it's all over, you might be, creatively inspired to create some negative stuff, to think about it. But a lot of times it's sort of like it bums you out. I remember when I was getting heavily into conspiracy theories, I didn't want to make music. I didn't know if I wanted to continue living. It was like, what's the point? Like, the whole world is controlled and everything is basically predetermined. And what's the point of anything? Can you even really enjoy anything? So there's definitely like a price to pay for the stuff that we consume. And I think that your creativity can be really negatively impacted by consuming this kind of stuff. Mine for sure has. And, my thing that I always remember, so I know this stuff when it comes to your food and your diet. Like, you are what you eat. So if you're eating crap, you're going to feel like crap, right? Duh. But if you eat healthy and you try to inject some vegetables and healthy stuff, fresh fruits and all that kind of stuff into your diet, you're going to feel a lot better. Well, your media consumption is even probably more important because this is the stuff that you're listening to and watching and injecting your mind with all the time. And so if we are eating and consuming garbage in terms of our media consumption, which is what I've been doing, we're not going to feel so great. We're going to have a lot of negativity spiraling around us. And so that's why I want to change that. So with that being said, that's the reason why I'm doing this. That's why I think it's a really important thing. How am I going to get all of this done? I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to plan to do this. While it gets a little warm in here, I'm going to take my jacket off. This is how I plan on getting all this stuff done. And I think the how is pretty much one of the most important things, because just saying, all right, this is my new resolution. I'm going to be nicer to people. I'm going to donate to charity. Whatever your resolution is. If you don't have a specific plan for how to do that, it's just not going to work out. Your willpower will not carry you through the entire year. I'm not depending on my willpower at all. I know my willpower is not strong enough to carry me through that. I can 1 or 2 times a day say no to some news outlets, but I'm not going to be making an entire year out of constantly walking by, looking at news information, and just willingly always saying, nope, not going to do it, not going to do it, not going to do that. It's the same thing as, for me, donuts are one of my biggest Achilles heels. So addicted to donuts, hopelessly addicted, especially apple fritters, my favorite. But this is why I don't put a dozen donuts on my kitchen table and just leave them there for when I feel like, once in a while I want to have a donut. Why is that not a good idea? Because I'm constantly tempting myself. I'm constantly removing the friction between me and getting that donut. If I want a donut right now, I got to put on my shoes, put on my jacket because it's freezing outside, get in my cold car, drive to the donut shop, which is like 10 minutes away, wait in line, bring it all the way back, and then eat it. That's too much work. There's so much friction between me and that donut. I'm not going to do that every single day. So thank God my willpower is not super strong, because if I had a really strong willpower to get that donut, I would be jumping in the car and going and doing that. So because there's a lot of friction and a lot of hoops and a lot of distance between me and that donut, I'm not going to do it. It's just not going to be something that's going to happen very often, okay? And this is why my how is so important for how I'm going to get rid of this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to share with you guys how to do this and the reason why I'm sharing with all of this as well. Okay, how? Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, and what I've already been doing, is blocking all of my accesses to news. So that includes blocking websites that I constantly habitually frequent, because sometimes I'm just bored. I'm just a little bit bored, and I'll just go to a website. I'll just go to a news outlet, or I'll go to YouTube and kind of go watch some political stuff. So I'm done with that. All right. So I'm going to block any access routes that I have to this kind of content. So I have website blockers, and on YouTube, for the people that I follow, I have unsubscribed to anybody, even people that I love, even people that I even sometimes financially support and donate to them. And I still actually will do that because I like what they do, but I don't want to consume their content right now. For right now, this is not something I want to do. I am blocking or unsubscribing to any form of content, emails, YouTube subscriptions, anything, of anybody that informs me of news stories on a regular basis, okay? So that's already been done. And that's so important to do that when you're in a state of like, okay, I'm ready to make this change. That one step alone is going to carry me through 2021. Because I know that if I just said all this stuff, yeah, I want to cut this out, and I know it's bad for me, but then I constantly had the box of donuts swirling around me all day long, like it's hopeless. Like my brain is not that strong. I don't have willpower that's going to be able to do that. I have to get the donut out of the house. I got to put that box. I just not bring it into the house. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm blocking news consumption out of my life. Now, here's the most important thing though. You can't just block, and this is what I'm learning in that book, The Power of Habit. You can't just block an old habit and then leave it there as an empty, open, emptiness. You got to replace that habit with something new. Okay. So what I've been doing is, instead of only unsubscribing from things and blocking things, I am now introducing new forms of content into my life on a daily basis. So stuff like mindfulness, meditation. I do love learning about like the brain, how it works, the power of habit, these kind of interesting books and concepts for how to sort of like hack your brain, hack your life, create better, effective methods. Obviously learning about how to run my business in a more efficient way, how to have better customer service, how to create a more powerful platform for producers. So any content that's circling around all of that stuff, that's my new misdirection. Okay, it is still a misdirection because it's still the most important thing to me because I'm looking at it, right? Is it the most important thing objectively in the world? No, but it is to me. And I'm going to start making that choice that I want to be my own news aggregator, right? And I want to make sure that the stuff that I'm going to be spending my days on and years on is going to be stuff that's going to help me, right? And help me feel more empowered and help me improve my life and to help serve others, and to basically just be a better human being, right? News and the misinformation stuff that I was talking about, misdirection stuff, no, that's not helping me do anything of that, any of that sort. This stuff will actually help me improve my life and to sort of take little steps towards even becoming a better human being. And that's what I'm going to be doing with all this, okay? So I've definitely replaced the consumption with a new habit, and that new habit, and also learning. I'm trying to learn Spanish right now. So that's going to be a new thing that I do on a daily basis, is watch a couple of Spanish speaking, instructional videos, and maybe invest in a couple of courses or something that can kind of give me sort of a daily, here's your Spanish lesson for the day, right? So a new thing that kind of introduces me to these new skills. So that's what I want to, that's what I'm doing, putting that together. You got to have that replacement though. That's so important for whatever you guys want to do, whatever your resolution is, or whatever the new thing is. If you want to cut something out, that's great, but you got to throw something else in there. You can't just leave it open, because you will go crawling right back to it. If it's just like an open hole there, you'll just crawl right back to the old habits. So you got to replace that old one with a brand new one, okay? And the last thing I'm doing, which is why I made this episode, is I'm sharing this with others. I'm sharing this with all of you guys. I wanted to let you guys know about this because I want to be accountable. If I had this resolution and didn't tell anybody, then if I sort of give up on it, nobody really knows. So I didn't really, who cares, right? But I've told my friends, I've told my family about it. I'm telling all of you guys about it. And I want everybody to know that this is something that I'm giving up, because I want to be held accountable for that. Like, not like you guys are going to be there watching my media consumption habits or whatever, but just me knowing that I've sort of confessed this, put this out there, kind of let this be out there for everybody to know. It gives me that extra little sense of like, there are eyeballs out there. There are other people out there that know this is what I intended and what I planned on doing. And we are social creatures, okay? We cannot just do this by ourselves. We need to realize that we need a support system. We need other people. And so that's my hope, obviously, with letting you guys all know about this and letting the people in my intimate, sort of day-to-day life about this. Of course, they're going to know the most, because if I start bringing up news topics, they're going to wonder, you said you didn't want to look at news topics. What's going on? And I've asked them all, please call me out on that. Let me know. Remind me. Not shame me, of course, but just remind me, hey, you said you didn't want to get into news. Is that still there? Did you slip up? Or maybe there's an access point you didn't see and it kind of crept into your life again. So I've asked them to sort of be my eyes and ears and help me be accountable to this kind of stuff, okay? That's basically how I'm going to replace this habit with a much more productive one. And I can already tell you that, I've been doing this for a couple of days now. I feel this sense of freedom and like a burden lifted that I haven't felt in a long time. And so I'm guessing it's connected to this new thing. I do feel freer. I do feel like I don't have to live in somebody else's world. I don't have to be consumed by the fear and the horribleness of what's going on in the world. And I know that in some ways it'll disconnect me from some conversations with, friends and family. It's not that I'm not going to talk about, like if somebody wants to bring up a news topic, I'm not going to say, hey, you know what? I've banned news topics from my life. I can talk about them. That's fine. But it's not going to be in a sense of where I'm going to be coming to them saying, basically repeating what I've heard from news outlets, right? That's what most people are doing, is they're watching whatever their preferred news outlet is, getting the opinion, and then repeating that opinion to other people and thinking that that was their opinion, when it actually wasn't their opinion. It was somebody else's very convincing, persuasive argument that you adapted and said, yeah, I believe in that, and I'm going to now move forward with it. But this is where I want to change maybe some of those conversations and start to introduce, because I'm going to be consuming different kinds of content. I want to start to inject, right, more interesting, positive, different types of topics into the conversations that I'm having. And maybe that'll start ripple effects, right? And maybe other people will realize, that's a fascinating topic. I should look into that too. And that might get other people to also look into more positive things for themselves, or more empowering things, useful things for their lives, right? Something they can actually control. That's really what it comes down to. The news industry is about stuff I can't control, and the stuff that I'm going to start consuming is about stuff I can control and stuff that I can do. So it's really about empowering myself. That's what this is about. So that's what I got for you guys. And I really appreciate you hearing me out and letting me vent and share this with you. I really think it's going to help me, of course. And maybe some of you guys, this rung a bell for you. You realize that news has also been sort of a thing that's been, kind of a habit, basically, you've been needing to kick. And this might help you start that process if you want to. If watching the news has no negative effect on you and you feel great about it, keep watching the news. I'm not here to convince anybody to do anything. You are your own adult, and you decide what is right and what is wrong for you. So you obviously make those choices. But I want to know, what is your resolution for the new year, if you have any? And I not only want to know what is it, how are you planning to implement it? That is the most important thing. It's like the what is great. Everybody has big ideas. But it's the how. How is this going to be actually done? And what steps, meaningful, actionable steps, have you taken to ensure that it's going to be a successful thing, okay? I guess one thing, and I'll end this episode on, is belief. One thing about that book, The Power Habit, is really talked about is that it's not just always about replacing the habit with a more positive or desirable one, I should say. But you also have to believe that you can change. You really have to have this in your bones, in your belly, in your heart. You have to feel and believe that change is possible. And you have to almost envision yourself not doing the thing or starting to do the thing that you want to start doing as your resolution. So I am definitely moving into a space where I'm envisioning myself not consuming this stuff and feeling awesome about it. I can't tell you how great and positive that feels. Just to view my life, not tuning in, not watching this stuff, not feeling like I am being constantly bombarded with negativity, propaganda, anything that I just, every time I feel that, I just go, ugh. And then it's like, well, I have this horrible feeling. I got to watch another news thing to kind of get rid of that feeling and make sure that's okay, right? So we're always trying to like validate or get rid of that feeling. It's just a never-ending spiral and it goes nowhere. So to know that I've sort of taken one foot out of that little negative death spiral just feels free. It feels a lot more freeing. It feels a lot more like I'm back in control of my mind, of where I want my mind to essentially start going. And so that's what I'm doing here, guys. That's really what this is all about. And I'm obviously open to, the most exciting thing is, what kind of opportunities or ripple effects is this one little habit change going to have in my life? That's the most important thing. That's the most exciting thing, because I have a feeling it's going to open up Pandora's box in a great way and put me on to some really fascinating things in life and take me down some really awesome adventures and really cool journeys. So that's what I'm most open to. And that's what gets me just so feeling good about this, feeling that this is the right move for me to make right now in my life. So share with me, what is your resolution? Comment below if you're here on YouTube. Email me, jesse@syncmymusic.com if you're listening to the podcast. I want to hear what you guys are doing this year, what your resolution is, and I would like to know how you're going to achieve all those. So that's what I got, guys. Have a fantastic, awesome, and safe new year. And I look forward to some really awesome content I'm going to be putting together for you guys here in January and February. Definitely get on my YouTube channel. I have some really, really big, awesome, I think some of the best stuff I've ever created coming up in January. I don't know, I'm fired up. I'm feeling really good. And I think some of the stuff that I'm putting out there right now is some of the best that I've ever done. So if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel and you're not getting my notifications, you are certainly missing out. So please don't miss out anymore and get started with us. So I wish you guys all the best and Happy New Year. We'll see you guys next time.